What's up everybody, welcome to Rewind 245. Today we'll be going over the top 10 PlayStation 4 exclusives, from first party exclusives to console exclusives. We will not be counting any HD remasters like The Last of Us or the Uncharted collection, but we will be going over some pretty awesome exclusives for the PlayStation 4 that I highly recommend you check out before we get the big exclusive later this year, which is Uncharted 4, and even more later this year, No Man's Sky, and even more later on, Horizon. So please kick back and enjoy. Number 10, Driveclub. There's really not much to say about this. I'm not much of a racing fan, but I did enjoy Driveclub quite a bit. It did have some problems when it hit launch, from some connection issues and some lack of content, single player content that people had issues with. And not only that, but it took a while for it to come to PlayStation Plus. But over time, it developed, and the hardcore community stuck with it, and now it's a pretty good game. And it was available for free on PS Plus, which was the way I tried it out. But it's a nice driving game. It's nice that it's an exclusive to PlayStation 4. But we're still waiting for the big one, which is Gran Turismo. But Driveclub is still worth checking out. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. This is a game published by Sony Santa Monica and made by the same guys who made Amnesia: Day of Pigs, I believe. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture is a very interesting game, very beautiful looking game. It resonated with a lot of people, got really great reviews. I personally wasn't a huge fan about it, but I still enjoyed it for what it was. It was a very beautiful game with a pretty interesting story. But yeah, story wise, I wasn't as blown away as most people, but still worth a game checking out. People will consider this a quote unquote walking simulator, but it's sort of like a first person exploration game where you go out and sort of consume the story within your own pace. But I highly recommend it. The Order 1886. Now this is probably a little controversial. I actually really enjoyed The Order 1886. It was heavily criticized for having a very short single player campaign, but not only that, people didn't feel that it was very interesting, or people just found it boring because it felt too much of a movie rather than a game. And in a technological and presentational standpoint, The Order 1886 looks amazing and is well presented, but gameplay wise it is not as strong. But I still enjoyed it for what it was, and the story and the world that really Dawn built for this universe is actually quite interesting. I do hope that Sony probably makes a sequel or does something with it, because I do feel like it's a series that has a lot of potential, and I think it's worth checking out. Fat Princess Adventures. If you don't know Fat Princess, it was a multiplayer centric game that originally came from the PlayStation 3 and made its way on some other things like the PSP with different versions, and there's a mobile game for it as well. Fat Princess is pretty well known in the PlayStation community, but Fat Princess Adventures takes a pretty different take, focusing more on, I guess, it has a little bit more of a story to it, and it's more PvE centric rather than PvP centric. And it sort of offers more of a Diablo sort of top down sort of gameplay, where you're just sort of gathering loot and killing enemies and leveling up. But the gameplay is pretty fun, it's very charming, it's pretty funny. It's a fun game to play by yourself or with a few friends, either locally or online. There is no PvP like most people will want it, but it's still a really fun game. Infamous Second Son. This was actually my first PlayStation 4 game, and this was the reason why I bought a PS4, and I was a little less disappointed. But Infamous Second Son is awesome game in terms of gameplay presentation. At the time, it definitely was one of PlayStation 4's better games because just in the presentational and gameplay standpoint, it was amazing. I was just disappointed the way the story was executed. I was expecting something different, but the story that is offered there is still pretty good, and it's pretty good for newcomers as well to come into the series. The game's very fun, very fluent gameplay. Looks very beautiful. I highly recommend it. If you're looking for something with a nice open world, beautiful visuals, and great animation, it definitely has that AAA quality to it. Bloodborne, oh god, Bloodborne is so fucking crazy and so damn intense. Like, I just remember playing that. I never got the chance to beat it because it was too hard for me and I died too much, but it's still a very enjoyable game. If that is the type of game you're looking for, if you're looking for something with a deep challenge, and both that feels satisfying to accomplish, Bloodborne is definitely up your alley. Bloodborne is definitely not for everybody though, but it does offer very intense and very satisfying gameplay that feels challenging and very struggling, but it feels satisfying when you're able to get through it. But Bloodborne is definitely one of PS4's highlights, more highlighted games right now, and it's definitely worth checking out. PT Silent Hills. Now you may not say this counts because it's no longer available on the PlayStation Store, but at a time it was available on PlayStation Store for free, and it was only available and only has been available on PlayStation 4. So it technically is and was a PlayStation 4 exclusive. Now, yeah, people today can't really get their hands on it, but there's still some people out there who have a PS4, who still have PT installed, that can still are able to play it. And if you're one of those people, then I highly recommend you check it out right away. Like, don't snooze on this. If you still have it installed on your PS4 and you haven't checked it out, take the opportunity to do it. So, because what happens is something happens to your PS4, or for some reason somehow you accidentally delete it or something, like whatever mistake happens or whatever unfortunate situation, I highly recommend you just check it out as soon as possible, because this is definitely something worth checking out because it's so rare right now. Well, because it's basically unplayable any other way. Infamous First Light. Now, this ranked a little bit higher than Second Son, mostly because the story here I found a lot more, better, I guess, compared to Second Son. I don't know, it just resonated with me a lot more. Even though it's a lot more shorter experience, it provided a story that was straight to the point, but it was also quite satisfying and quite touching as well. But not only that, it offered quite a little bit of replayability, because there was this thing called these arena maps where you could go in and basically just compete for high scores amongst other people to basically defeat enemies in these sort of round-based challenges. And there's a bunch of challenges. There's an open world to explore with a bunch of side things to do. This could be a game that keeps you busy, and is, like Infamous Second Son, it still offers that fun and satisfying gameplay. So I highly recommend it if you have it, or if you don't, then check it out. Soma for the PlayStation 4. This is the only other place this is available is on PC. So this is considered a console exclusive to the PlayStation 4. Soma is a very brilliant game that's very thought-provoking. It really deals with the ideas of what it means to be human, and things like that. It's very twisted, very dark game. It's sort of supposed to be a survival horror, first-person survival horror, similar to sort of PT, Alien Isolation, and Amnesia. This is from the creators of the original Amnesia. But it provides more of a psychological horror, where the world and the story really is really what's the horrific part about the game. There are certain enemies that you confront that sort of you have to avoid or run away from. But it's mainly a psychological horrific experience. But it's a very, very, very dark experience, and you'll know what I mean if you played it or if you are playing it at the moment. The only problem I have with it, while the gameplay is quite simple, there are times where it feels a little bit, you get lost at, like you end up getting lost, and you end up getting a little bit disoriented and you don't know where to go. But other than that, Soma's a very top-notch game and definitely worth an experience worth checking out. Tearaway Unfolded for the PlayStation 4. Now, you may not say this counts because this was available on the PlayStation Vita, but I believe it does, and because this is not a simple HD upgrade compared to The Last of Us or the Nathan Drake collection. This is sort of a bit of a remix or a reimagining of the original. Just in terms of design, gameplay, and controls, Tearaway on PS4 and Vita are completely different. In terms of story and some of the story layouts is similar, but there are significant differences between the two, especially in terms of design, the gameplay, and the mechanics. Like, they're completely different on the way they play, and they both kind of offer different experiences in different ways. If you get it on Vita, you'll get one experience on that's more handheld centric. On the PS4, you get an experience that feels more of a console experience. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but you'll know if you played through both of them. At least that's the way I feel. Anyway, Tearaway Unfolded is a very beautiful and unique game from Media Molecule, the very talented studio who made the Little Big Planet series. Tearaway just offers a very unique and very charming gameplay and mechanics, where you could decorate your own character or do other it just has a very unique gameplay mechanics. There's a demo available on the PlayStation Store, so if you want to take a look at yourself, please take a look at it, so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. But it's a very different game. But what I love about it the most is that it reminds me of a 3D platformer, and we don't really get much of those these days. But it's a very different kind of 3D platform. It's not anything like Banjo-Kazooie or anything like that, but it's a very different take on it, and it's very charming. It does get pretty dark, and it does offer a pretty deep story that's quite meaningful, or at least feels meaningful, and actually left me kind of teared up at the very end. But Tearaway Unfolded, I highly recommend it. It's not really a game for anybody because some people find it childish, but check out the demo, and I say please give it a try.